There we go. Welcome in, everybody. Joe Quills here with you on this Thursday night, the final edition of the week of the show. And got some interesting topics that we're going to talk about here tonight as well. We're also going to also do my annual thing of remembering 9/11 on the 24th anniversary of the show, of the sad day. Um, in a way, it seems like yesterday that this happened. And, also seems like it was 50 years ago, but um, we'll get to that as well because that's also, I mean, that's important for me to get at least give you my thoughts on that horrific day. I'm going to talk a little bit of sports here. Um, talk about the gambling problems in college basketball. Dolphins may be in trouble because they had a players only meeting already this year. Um, Lamar Jackson didn't get suspended or fined or anything. No discipline whatsoever for what he did Sunday pushing a fan. Um, Acquitted Hockey Canada players can return to the NHL on December 1st. I'll give you some of that as well. And gonna have the Philly Phade tonight. Got a couple of picks for you here. We'll scroll through the college games. We'll go through a couple of the pro games, and even going to give you a soccer matchup. Um, I know I talked to Mike after the show on Monday, and I gave him my theory about that, and I'll let you know what that was here. So, um, but also if you notice, we did do a little bit of decorating here, and this is because I've been at this setup for about a year now, almost a year. I thought what I would do is I would do some decorating here, some sports stuff, take advantage of that wall behind me. So we got the replica 2008 World Series flag. Hopefully, we'll have a 2025 World Series flag. And we also have the Super Bowl champion uh, uh, decal icon, whatever you want to call it. I popped that on the wall last night as well because I had the day off yesterday and um, started to do some things here because your boy's on vacation next week from his real job at Redacted, but I will still be on Twitch. I'll still be on YouTube, X, all that, and also take note of the special that's going on here right now. Um, you can subscribe to the Joe Quill Show, and the best part about the Joe Quill Show is you can get those alerts on your phone like that, and I prefer that you subscribe to Twitch because that's my preferred platform, um, and we'll get that. You know, I think Twitch is a better site for me than anything else because I'm also going to be doing some gaming next week, probably. Just got to work some kinks out over the next couple of days. And that's a great thing about being on vacation. We can do a couple extra things that uh, we can get ready and do some other things as well. Um, so if you see me mid afternoon on Monday on Twitch, um, yeah, your boy may be doing some gaming here as well. So trying to get more people on here, get more people watching, make a few make a few cents every here or there. And so I had this crazy thought here before we get to the serious note. And um, the one thing I said was, that saying, and it's a meme. Um, um, Boss makes a quarter, I make a dime. That's why I poop on company time. Well, if I do that on a Sunday when I'm getting time and a half, am I really making 15 cents instead of 10? Just a thought. But just the dumb stuff that I come up here every once in a while. So, you know, with some of the stuff that I deal with at Redacted, especially in my department, you know, you think of stupid shit like that all the time. So, but I'm also keeping an eye on the games going on right now. I don't have the football game on right now, and there's a reason for that. Because the Phillies are taking on the New York Mess. Yes, that's right, the MESS, mess. And the Mets got out to a 4-0 lead in the first inning. Well, it's now 6-4 good guys in the bottom of the seventh here as the Phillies attempt to put their magic number to win the National League East to 5, which means we could have a clinch scenario as early as Sunday. That's a beautiful thing. And the Mets may be in trouble to the point where they may not even make the playoffs. And Monday we were discussing that, and chairman of the board is in form already. It's crazy that I like you. I hate all of your teams. And the thing is with him, with chairman of the board, it's mostly the Detroit teams, and it's the Atlanta Braves, if I'm correct. And we're cool people. You know, I'm cool with chairman. And I might as well just do this. There you go. There's a shout out for you. So, he's good people. He's part of Action Labs. He also has his own show. He has his own channel, which I shared with you guys. Check him out. He occasionally goes political. I tend to steer clear, but it's sometimes I tread the line a little bit, and we're going to get to okay, so I was right. Packers are natural enemy of the Lions, and the Phillies are natural enemy of the Braves. Yeah. So I do want to give you my thoughts on 9/11, and I also want to give you because, I do appreciate that, Chairman. But yes, you're still my guy, good people. So I want to give you my thoughts on 9/11. I also, because I know Chairman never heard my story about 9/11. Then again, with me, it was just, working at my job at Redacted. I was 2 years in at the time. I'm now at 26 years with the company. I do want to give some thoughts about that day. And I think the statute of limitations is up, and also the fact that we had all kinds of, I was working. Our office at that time was in Upper Darby, which is right outside of West Philadelphia. And the thing is with me, I still live in the Northeast, but I was closer to the office at my that office. Well, even with the office I'm in now, than where we were in Upper Darby. And we were right off of 69th Street Terminal, a couple blocks away. So And I probably should have mentioned these calls that were coming in. And there were some strange calls. I think it was, I'm not sure if it was Saturday night or Sunday night, because we were overnight that weekend. And some of this is fuzzy, but but the actual day itself, you're not going to forget that anywhere. We were working overnight, and back then, if one of the other offices, I think it was the Pittsburgh office at the time, if they didn't work overnights, we would cover it. And it was a weekend that we were covering, and I know at least me, and I didn't ask anybody else at the time. I just thought, oh, middle of the night, people acting normal, all that stuff. But there were a couple of calls that were questionable, where I probably should say, hey, I just got this call. He's saying, this, and this, and he was saying stuff about not necessarily killing people or anything like that, but something that after the fact, and even years after the fact, you put two and two together, everything makes sense. So, and everything connected when Tuesday came around. Now, 9/11 was on a Tuesday. And the reason why I know that is there was a Monday night football game, Denver and New York. And the Giants came home right before all this happened. So I was living at home. And some people say, oh, yeah, we won't get into that. So I didn't have to be in work that day until like 2:30 or something like that. I was working like 2:30 to 10, 2:30 to 10:30, whatever, 2 to 10, 2:30, 10:30, something like that. So my phone rings about 9:30 in the morning. My mom's hysterical. I never heard my mom like this. And trust me, I was a bad kid at times. And, I probably got her somewhat close to that, but never like that. But she's like, turn the TV on, blah, blah, blah. They, a plane hit the one tower and another plane hit another tower and a train. And I think at that time, one of the towers fell. So I'm like, I'm just trying to get my bearings. And mind you, this isn't like 2025 where you can find out all kinds of information like that. Like, and trust me, this is comparing apples and oranges. I'm treading lightly when I mention Charlie Kirk. Like, for example, right away that something happened. And even when I listen to old podcasts, the morning show that I listened to, Preston and Steve, but I listen to their podcasts because I don't get up early enough to listen to their show live. They mentioned, a plane hit one of the towers. And, for the most part, it's like, oh, plane hit the tower, probably an accident. But once the second one hit, you knew it was an act of terror and not something that happened. I mean, this wasn't like Corey Lytle, if you remember him, former Philly, who ended up getting traded to the Yankees. He was a guy who used to fly planes. Now, not 737, 747, whatever. Like he would have he would fly these littler planes, and he crashed into a building. Unfortunately, he passed away pretty much on contact. But you know, I'm trying to figure out what's going on because I went to bed. I'm just thinking, oh well, get up, get ready to go work, leave by 1 o'clock so I can be there by 2, so that I can be ready for work at 2:30. So then work calls about half an hour later. I guess you heard about, yeah, I'll be in as soon as I can. So, and here's the thing. I had limited, I mean, granted, I had a computer, I had internet and stuff like that, but it's not as fast. And, and also on top of that, you had all this, it's the only event that I remember in my lifetime. And I will be whatever age +1 next week. It was the only event I saw where even ESPN went to all news. And chairman says, somebody work told me a plane hit the World Trade Center. I said, weird, picturing like a little Cessna thing. Yeah. Mickey, welcome in. We are going to get to the sports here, but I'm just reflecting on 9/11 first before we get to the sports here. So, and it was a surreal feeling at work because, mind you, back then, 411 was how you got telephone numbers. You probably could get numbers online, but not as, it was still, everybody was calling 411 for numbers. And everybody's saying, I can't get through and blah, blah, blah. And, these buildings had everything on them. They had satellites. There was actually this one program, I just remembered it today. There was a program that Gateway Computers, if you remember them, I think it was called Click Radio. And it would go on top of it would be a toolbar that you would have on top of your screen. And it would just play music, whatever genre you wanted. And it was a cool thing. And then I didn't, and then I had to call Gateway because my monitor was broken. And they said, oh, yeah, remember Click Radio? I'm like, yeah, I remember that. Well, that was a transponder that was on the World Trade Center. And when it came down, I was like, wow. I mean, but because not only did you have all the people that perished, and whether it was on the plane, in the buildings, which, so many people, over 3,000, never thought that they would never be coming home again. And it was a very chaotic day. But I remember, and I still say it now, except I think the ship is long gone. And I mean, I think it's long gone for different reasons than it is now. The one thing I said, and ironically enough, it was, yeah, cow boxes, yeah. Yeah, I don't know what the correlation of the cow boxes were, or the cow design or anything like that. But by the way, Phillies are up 6-4 going into the ninth. But um, but it was such a chaotic day, and it was so weird because everything was shut down. Oh, they were founded in Iowa. Okay, okay, that makes sense. So, and the one thing I said, and ironically enough, it was the dumbest person in the office, and it wasn't a direct message to him. It was just me talking about the state of America because we got sucker punched. For and that's putting it nicely. I remember saying to the guy, and this guy was dumber than a bag of rocks. Also, um, and I'll tell you how dumb he was. Most people, you just tell, like, I had to help the office because we had just gotten these what's called Windows logins for our computers that redacted. So, because one of the people, one of the security guards went on one of the computers, was watching or downloading porn or something. So it's like, all right, everybody's got their own login, which we should have had from the very beginning. But I timed it. I'm just like, this is what you got to do. You pick one capital letter, one lowercase letter, a number, and maybe a special character, whatever. But it's got to be 8 characters, blah, 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 blah. Most people, 15 seconds. Took this guy 45 minutes. Well, I mean, that's how dumb he was. And if Mike was here, he would know exactly who I'm talking about. Mike, my Monday co-host. So one thing I said was, we need to get ourselves educated fast, because we need to embrace the technology that's out there, the technology that's coming, because we're not going to survive. We're not going to win. We're not going to survive this war that we are already in because of what happened that day. And I still feel like, and I even with my job now, it's even with being in customer service still, that it's basically America's just getting dumber and dumber and dumber. But and I was thinking about saying this today, but I didn't on my Facebook page. I thought about saying it. I stopped because I know people would get offended by it. And truthfully, if they unfriended me, I don't care, because, but I just feel like all we need to do is to educate ourselves a little bit more, but it's just very sad what happened that day. And I thought that the best thing that we could do as Americans is just honor them by advancing ourselves. But I think that I don't think we ever had, but but the thing is, we still have today, and next year's going to be a big one because it's the 25th anniversary, and it is a very sad day. Even now, 24 years later, I admit I don't know anybody who was affected by this. I don't know what to do. I don't know how I would react to somebody who was affected, even 24 years after. But I think Mickey and Chairman are in my age range, so to speak, within a few years. This is our generation's. This is our generation's JFK assassination. This is our generation's Pearl Harbor, and and also Major League Baseball, as I see right now, is there's 2 outs in the 9th inning. I see that the Phillies, I'm sure all the teams do, they have a special patch on the side commemorating, commemorating may not be the right word, but remembering those who lost their lives that morning. But it was a sad day. Every time this day comes around, it's just a horrific day for everybody. But all we can do is live on in their memories. So I don't have a good way of moving on from this, but let's just remember those who passed away as a result of that horrific day 24 years ago today. So, and now that we're getting back into the sports portion of this here, I do have to say this, and we're gonna do this here, but this is what we have for the New York Mets right now. Thank you, Mickey. I do appreciate that. Mickey is 57. I will be 52 next Thursday. But the reason why I went is because the New York Mets are in some serious trouble. They lost their 6th game in a row. They got swept out of Philly because winners win. Damn it! I gotta do one thing here. Hold on. Because the Phillies game was on, I didn't set up my so we can. Oh. There we go. So I'm now putting on the football game, and at least I'm trying to. And right now, forgive me because I had zero. I had neither of my TVs had the football game on. 14-3 with at the 2-minute warning in the first half, but the commies look like they're trying to put a drive together. So, so we got a couple of football stories we're going to get into in a couple of minutes here. But I saw this yesterday and again today, and gambling is an issue in the college basketball realm. And I think not only is it just, not only is it kids getting money that they don't know what to do with, I think it's also, oh, they're not going to catch me. Well, guess what? 13 players from six different schools have been involved in gambling schemes, according to this report. The NCAA announced today that 13 men's college basketball players from 6 schools were involved in gambling schemes, including point shaving and game manipulation. And you could argue that it's partially because of sportsbook gambling. You could also argue it's, so many different things, but I think it's more than just sportsbook gambling. I think it's also, and here's the thing: do the athletes deserve to get paid? Yeah. As much as they do? No. But I'm also a person that will tell you that technically athletes got paid because what they got paid for was tuition, room, and board, which they probably didn't have to pay back. But my student loans I'm paying off. But I digress on that. But so players formerly associated with Eastern Michigan, Temple, Arizona State, New Orleans, NCAA, and Mississippi Valley State are under investigation for gambling violations, according to the NCAA, which declined to name the athletes until the infractions process has concluded. None of the players are currently enrolled in the schools where the infractions occurred, according to the NCAA. Now, I know the kid that was at Temple a couple of years ago. He tried to transfer to Virginia Tech. And Virginia Tech found out that that transfer was named in what was going on at Temple. They said, you're out. So, but 3 players ended up getting banned from what I see here as well. Kid from, well, they're adults, but you get the idea. Fresno State men's basketball player manipulated his performance for gambling purposes and conspired with 2 players to place bets on the stats, according to findings from an NCAA release. Michael Robinson from Fresno State, San Jose guard Steven Vasquez, and Fresno State guard Jalen Weaver are permanently ineligible due to gambling violations that are no longer enrolled in those schools. Now, we're never going to find out what they were thinking or anything like that, but I guarantee you it's a combination a combination of things that I said earlier about why they did it. Gambling because A, they had the money. 2, they didn't think they would be caught. And what's crazy is the 3 kids that were deemed permanently ineligible to gambling, they were in schools in California, and California does not have sportsbook gambling. So that makes it all even more law breaking, so to speak, because that's one of the reasons why he did that. But you can play daily fantasy. But I think the Fresno athletes were playing daily fantasy for their stats. So, but California has ruled in the past that daily fantasy is gambling too. So, but so the 13 athletes that are under investigation, they bet on and against their own teams, sharing information with third parties for purposes of betting, knowingly manipulating scoring or game outcomes, or refusing to participate in the enforcement of in the enforcement staff's investigation. Well, the first thing is you impede or not choose to participate in the investigation. Yeah, you're basically found guilty. In a way, it's kind of like drunk driving, and it's like, oh, I refuse to take that test. Well, you refuse, that means you're guilty. So but I think what's scary is betting against your own team. Now, granted, some of these teams that year were pretty fucking bad. Temple was bad, and then all of a sudden, they almost made the tournament. It was like, well, something ain't right with these teams. Something ain't right with this Temple Owls team. And then, some of the red flags started flying, smoke, where there's smoke, there's fire. I use that line a lot. You're wondering what's going on, and then all of a sudden you start winning. That makes that turn into a raging inferno. But Mississippi Valley State, they're a bottom feeder year after year after year. NCAA, I'm not sure of. New Orleans, University of New Orleans is a pretty bad team. They actually left Division I and came back, I believe. So the rise of sports betting is creating more opportunities for athletes across sports to engage in this unacceptable behavior. While legalized sports betting is here to stay, regulators and gaming companies can do more to reduce the integrity risk by limiting prop bets and giving sports leagues a seat at the table when setting policies, according to NCAA President Charlie Baker in a release. Now, the one thing I will say is, being in Pennsylvania, and I'm watching some other people's streams on Twitch and, or even Yahoo or whatever, it's like, well, I'm going with so-and-so with over 18.5 points tonight in college basketball. It's like, I'm in Pennsylvania. I can't play it. I can't tell you. I know you've been red hot too, but unfortunately, you can't. And every state has their own set of rules. Like, for example, I found this out firsthand. I went down to Atlantic City a couple of years ago for a day. And I'm not sure if it was the Big East final or, just Villanova was playing Seton Hall for whatever reason. The laws in New Jersey, and I think this was even before Pennsylvania got sportsbook gambling, which wasn't far behind New Jersey. New Jersey, I think this is the case even now because every once in a while, for whatever reason, my FanDuel pings as New Jersey. And I'm in Philadelphia. But granted, I'm about 4 miles from the river, so I'm more than enough away where I should be pinging in Pennsylvania. But, it happens every once in a while, but it hasn't lately. In the state of New Jersey, you cannot play a college level sports wager of a school in New Jersey. That's a state law. Every state has their own laws. In Pennsylvania, for example, you can't do those prop wagers. And rightfully so. But a lot of what you have with these rules, they're trying to protect the integrity of the game. And even the two pitchers for Cleveland, Clase and I forget the other one. Doesn't really matter. But, like, for example, the one that I showed earlier in the year, the two pitches that were flagged by integrity groups that oversee the draft books, the sports books, apps, all that, they noted two pitches from this pitcher, and we showed that video during the summer. And one of them did seem a bit fishy. The other one didn't necessarily seem fishy to me, but that's why they're doing investigation. That's why they have these watchdog groups, even just to make sure everything's on the up and up. Especially with the way everybody says, "Oh, the script is out for Green Bay and Washington tonight," and half the time they're wrong, because I think the script last year for the Super Bowl was a very close game. Well, the Eagles went boot the ass on Kansas City, and they're going to do it again this weekend. But there's a reason why they're doing this. And it's so that everything's on the up and up, and even the general sports fan doesn't say, "Oh, he took a dive there. He took, he did this, he did that, all that stuff." But it's and I think even more so now, we find even more stuff out. I mean, some of them may just be conspiracy theory bullshit, and some could be actual truth. Like, I'm watching that situation with the LA Clippers, because they may have circumvented the cap with $2 million for Kawhi Leonard. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I haven't, I mean, that would have been my top story tonight, but I haven't investigated enough. Didn't watch Pablo Torre's show, Pablo Finds Out, which is part of Meadowlark Media, which is all on DraftKings Network, on at least on my Samsung TV here. So you see that this happens all the time, and of course the question is, will even daily fantasy be considered gambling, which, for example, California claims it is, and in a way it is, but So schools and respective staffs in the ongoing case are not alleged to have been involved in the violations. Enforcement staff is not seeking penalties for the institution, according to the NCAA in a release. So they're going to go after the individual student athletes and ban them for life or whatever. I mean, this is probably the closest thing that we've had since Pete Rose. And, you know, whether you're a Hall of Famer or you're some slap nut college kid, or we can even say high school, because I'm sure they got mommy or daddy's credit card or login information or whatever. You know, if you're betting on sports, you have to be very careful, especially if you're an athlete. I mean, there were a few players that got suspended for gambling in baseball last year, including one kid who got permanently banned. But, I mean, whether it's like in Pete Rose's case, and we may be comparing apples and oranges, and we may not here. From what we know, he only bet on the Reds when it came to baseball, or when it came to his Cincinnati Reds when he was managing. And this is probably also the case with these kids. You have over 12.5 points for yourself. Okay, and you're only at 4 points, but your team's winning. All of a sudden, you're jacking up threes for no reason, going totally against the coach's plan. Then you got your ass on the bench, and now then you have all this stuff going on. Now, that's why I argued with Pete Rose, for example, when he was managing. And I think it's pretty safe to say that he probably bet as a player, but they didn't investigate that far back. When it came to Pete Rose, I always argued looking at it 2020 in hindsight, 40 years after, well, if Pete bet on the game and he's making a move and you're bringing in somebody in the 7th inning instead of the 8th, well, is he doing this because he knows something, or is it because he has a wager on the game? So even though you're betting on your team to win, you're protecting money that you shouldn't be wagering, especially in baseball, where since the beginning of time, in the locker room, right there on the wall, no betting on baseball, banned for life. So essentially, since day one. But you do have, and you have had situations even in the NBA where the one guy was betting the unders on his wagers, and then he bet the unders, and then, I feel sick, I can't continue. Now, if you do it once, you can get away with it, but when you're doing it like a couple of different times and then you can trace wagers back to you, that's not good. But that's why we had these watchdog groups and everything else, because you want to keep everything on the up and up, even for those that have no interest in gambling. Now, me, I have interest in gambling. I just may not have the money to wager because I would rather just say, these are my picks. Like, for example, if you follow Quills Picks winners this week, we didn't have the winner today, but we had winners Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and yesterday. So that's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. 4 days in a row we had a winner. Now, we couldn't get our horse home because, the one problem with having a closer in a turf race, even if the rail isn't out that far, you got to weed through traffic. And he or she, I forget, I think it was a male horse, just couldn't get enough room to bolt through. So, and, those things happen from time to time. So, but, and this is why you have these watchdog groups or whatever you want to call them, integrity groups or whatever. ESPN previously reported that betting accounts associated with a gambling ring under federal investigation placed wagers deemed suspicious by bookmakers against Temple, Eastern Michigan, North Carolina A&T, Mississippi Valley State, and New Orleans over the past 2 seasons. Now, especially Temple, because that hit home. Now, granted, I'm actually a graduate of Drexel University, but, once Drexel's out, which is every year in a conference tourney, I've said it numerous times, and led to somebody unfriending me because of the fact that I was jinxing Villanova one year when they won the national championship. And I said, it was at that point of the tournament where you're in the Final Four, and I basically said, this isn't about the school. This is about the city, even though Villanova's in the suburbs, so the metropolitan area. It's about Philly pride. And the guy that was giving me shit, I said, dude, if they lose, they lose, but I'm rooting for them to win. And this was before sportsbook gambling and all that. So, but, you just have to realize that, when you look back at this, that hit home because it was like, I want to see all the teams do well. And it's been 3 full years without a team from Philly in the NCAA basketball tournament. It may end up being, and it may not be, but it is a, one thing I would say is if this gets to a high school kid out there who's thinking about college sports, whether it's football, basketball, anything that would be, or even any sport that would be, because I think the NCAA rule is you can't bet on a sport that the NCAA endorses or offers. So I think you can bet on ping pong and Australian rules football. That's about it. But you can actually bet some things, but some things obviously you can't. But one thing I would tell kids, and I'm not saying this as a wise adult, because I don't think I've ever been wise ass maybe. Nikki, do not say a word. But one thing I would say and this is partially me being a union rep, me going through sports management, Drexel University, and all that. Study these things because do you want to? Because do you want to be sent home middle of the year because you were using an account that your mother or father set up for you, and then they won't catch me. And guess what? They will. That's why those integrity sites and all that stuff are there. That's why they're there, to keep things on the up and up. And it's only a matter of time before more people get caught, more kids. And I wouldn't be surprised if this eventually goes into high school too, because you get your dad's phone and I'll log into my account because daddy set it up for me. So you go in there and I'm going to take Green Bay live wager. Boom. And you play football, even though it's pro and not college, you still can't bet football. And next thing you know, bye-bye college career, bye-bye any chance to make the NFL, for example. But the one thing I would say is to kids that may watch this in passing, just know what the stipulations are, all that stuff, because if you don't know what's going on, and I'm sure they get told many different times, hey, keep it on the up and up, but there's reasons why that they look at everything. So, just let you guys know as we move on to the NFL here, it's still 14-3. Since the final minute of the second quarter, the Packers and the Commies are trading missed field goals. Washington's kicker hooked a 58-yarder that wasn't even close. The Packers kicker hit an upright, and now the Washington kicker hit an upright. So still 14-3. And if you had the prop, if there was one tonight, hitting the post, well, you ended up winning at the end of the first half. But those things are usually ones that come up on the Super Bowl. But one team that I don't think will be making it to the Super Bowl is the Miami Dolphins. Well, then again, it's here somewhere. I have my spreadsheet around here that I printed up because I don't save it. I just print it up and hope to God I have it by the end of the year. I did not have Miami having a good year. And I would not be surprised if Mike McDaniel is the first coach fired. I think that, because there was a McDaniel and a McDaniels at one point, and I get them confused even now. But this is not a good sign. When you're a week into the season, and it's not good when you're struggling, sometimes you have to do it when you're a team that's winning. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the Mets had a players-only meeting. Even though I think that the Mets manager may be going after this year if they don't make it into the playoffs. But the Dolphins had a players-only meeting on the team's off day Tuesday in the wake of their 33-8 loss to the Indianapolis Colts in Week 1 to make sure they remained on the same page. To me, that's not a good sign that you're doing it in Week 1. Now, granted, you only have 17 games, but still, I don't even know if these are commonplace in the NFL. And if it is commonplace, how do they get leaked out? But and I didn't realize this because I was watching NFL Red Zone while I was working on Sunday. Indy scored on all 7 of its offensive possessions on Sunday. That's not good. And the offense only had 211 yards, and that marked their lowest total under coach Mike McDaniel in the game in which Tua Tagovailoa started. So I think that maybe they had too much expectations. They were probably thinking of Indianapolis the way that most of us were. It's like they're going to be the laughing stock of the league. Oh, they got Danny Dimes under center. And we saw what he did in New York. Well, maybe here's a crazy idea that I have. Maybe he's just football's A.J. Burnett. I'll tell you what I mean by that. When he pitched in Miami, he pitched well. Went to Pittsburgh, pitched well. Went to the Yankees, he was a raging shit show. I think he went back to Pittsburgh and did well again. Went to Philly, but he was at the end of the career, so you can blame it on age, even though he was in a big market. But maybe being on a team that doesn't necessarily have the spotlight or the big market, maybe he'll thrive. Who knows? Maybe Shane Steichen is a bit of a whisperer, even though he couldn't whisper to Anthony Richardson, because Anthony Richardson has his own way of playing, which is reckless. But, you got a lot of... And I think if they lose the game 13-8, let's say, 13-7, because I doubt they go for 2 when it's a close game. I guarantee if it's a close game, they probably don't have that meeting, closed door meeting. And who knows, maybe it helps, and maybe it's just a raging shit show that they're going to have in Miami this year. That's very possible. Sunday marked one of Tua's worst games. He completed 14 of 23 passes for 114 yards and a touchdown, but he threw 2 interceptions and lost a fumble. So if you had him as your starting quarterback this past Sunday, so it was his worst full game passer rating of his career. After the game, Tua said he was looking forward to seeing which of his teammates showed up Tuesday to watch film. He told reporters Wednesday that he was happy with the turnout. So I guess Tua still is a leader. I think he got his message across very quickly. I just think that maybe he just didn't, everybody had, sometimes it happens where everybody just has a bad game. And also keep in mind with Indianapolis, this was the first regular season game that they played since Jim Irsay's passing. So that could fall into play with some of the, with Indy, because, the emotion may not be there, and it may be that they go back to being what we expect them to be. Or it may be that Shane Steichen has connected with Danny Dimes in the offense. Who knows? But so Tua said, I got the offense together, and we had a meeting about things that we wanted to do, hang our hats on this week, points of emphasis, how we wanted to go about it this week. We got all that communicated to those guys, so that's what we've got. I thought that was the cool thing is that was their process going to week one. Win, lose, you got a lot. You got to see a lot of the same guys back in the film room, back in the meeting rooms. I thought it was a cool thing. And the thing is, now we can question Tua, the on-field leader, probably. And probably the worst thing that ever happened was that 70-point game because, even the Dolphins 13, 14 fans that they have are thinking we should be scoring 70 points a night, which is not possible. Because, like, for example, in that game, Indy only had 7 possessions. And if you score 7 touchdowns, that's only 56 points at the most. Unless you go for 2 every time, that would be 64. Or, actually, it'd be 56 if you went for 2 each time, 40 to bucket. But anyway, you know what I mean. But the Dolphins started off very slow last year as well. They lost 6 of their first 8 games. They had a late push, but they finished 8-9 out of the playoffs. And I think the luster is gone from Mike McDaniel, the head coach. I think he just may be some nerd that is stealing money in the NFL, so to speak. Because remember how, this weird guy is taking over and blah, blah, blah. Well, now he looks like a weird guy that doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. But linebacker Jordan Brooks said Tuesday's meeting was a way to keep things from getting out of hand and potentially demoralizing the loss. Losing the way we did can be discouraging. Outside noise, people talking, family talking, everybody talking. This meeting was just kind of making sure that everybody's together. When you lose like that, it's easy for people to get discouraged, start looking, questioning maybe yourself and others. So making sure that we are all locked in, making sure the belief is still there. You lose belief, you don't have nothing. So making sure that everything's still on the same page, and next week come back stronger. So maybe this will work out for the good. But if things go bad again, and Miami plays home against New England. And because it is a 1:00 game in Miami, they're going to make New England wear those navy blue uniforms in the heat. That's going to happen. But, you got to, if they don't right the ship here. Now, if they lose a close game, like let's say they lose 24-21, even though it's still a loss, is it acceptable? Because if they get blown out again, 35-3, 35-10, something like that to New England, Mike McDaniel may not make it to next Tuesday. Or since they play next Thursday on my birthday, he may not make it past next Friday. Actually, he may not even make it to Buffalo's airport after the game. They may just Lane Kiffin him and say, find your own way home. That may be what's happening too, but you do have all kinds of issues going on there in Miami right now. And maybe they're just being proactive because of the fact that this was not what we planned. And we got embarrassed, and we need to right the ship now, because if we don't do it this week, it's going to be a long, long season. So, but they have a critical 3-game stretch here. I mentioned New England. They go to Buffalo on Thursday night. They get 10 days to prepare for the Jets on Monday Night Football. So they could, and also if you lose all 3 games, that could mean the end of Mike McDaniel as well, because not only would you be 0-4, even if you lose 3 close games, you're 0-3 in the division. I don't know what else you can do. I don't know what else you can do to save your job if that's the case after last year's slow start. I'm just wondering, of the 13, 14 Miami Dolphins fans that are out there, are you sick of his nerdiness or whatever? But we'll see what happens this weekend. I don't think that's a game I'm going to pick, but no, we'll go through the Philly Phade at the end of the show. Lamar Jackson. Now, I'm not going to show the video only because, just want to make sure I follow terms and conditions and all that stuff. So, Lamar Jackson will not face discipline for shoving a Bills fan. Now, if you were watching that crazy game, and this was the part of the game where it was like, man, Baltimore's going to win by 30, 35. And then they shit the bed and gave up a 14-point lead in the final 4 minutes, or 15-point lead. Lamar Jackson will not face discipline. NFL confirmed that the quarterback will not receive any league discipline for an incident where he shoved the Bills fan in the stands after the fan hit him and teammate DeAndre Hopkins in the helmet. NFL spokesman Brian McCarthy said the matter had been addressed by the club. There's no further action to be taken. Now, the Bills fan, and rightfully so, he remains indefinitely banned from all NFL stadiums. So not just Buffalo, the 29 other stadiums. Because remember, LA has 2 teams in the same stadium, the same with the Meadowlands. So, but what happened was Jackson went to Hopkins for a long touchdown pass in the 3rd quarter. Group of players were walking along the wall around the field behind the end zone, where a seemingly irate Bills fan shoved his hand into the helmets of 2 players. And that's something that you just don't do, and it's very stupid, because even if the player does lose his cool and come after you, he's got all that, they've got all that armor on, padding, but you know what I mean. And they got that helmet. You're not going to be in a good position to defend yourself, because if you start throwing punches, you're going to be hitting probably chest padding, shoulder pads, whatever, or even a cup if you wanted to go for a low blow. So it's not smart, and it's a obvious violation of the fan code. But I just wonder if it was some no-name, or actually, if it was Cooper Rush, that did that, would he face discipline, or would the same thing happen with Lamar Jackson where, oh, team handled it, we're not doing anything else? Well, also, the NFL did nothing with that I know of with Dak Prescott either for spitting toward Jalen Carter. Now, in terms of getting the best defensive player out for the game before the first snap, the first offensive snap, it's genius. But it's also classless, just as classless as what Jalen Carter did back. But now Jackson said he apologized for the incident, but with the added advice of just chill next time. But the thing is with me, if this had been Cooper Rush, if this was Tanner McKee, if this was whoever is the number 2 while Tanner McKee's out, Sam Howell. If it was anybody else that was not a superstar player, would they have gotten the same treatment? I don't think so. You got superstar treatment there, in my opinion. Well, other than whatever the Ravens did, and Ravens aren't going to release what they did. They'll just say to the media, if they did say anything to the media, they probably will just say, "Oh, we handled it in-house. It's over." I just think he got preferential treatment here. But but a lot of fans will say, "Oh, Jalen Carter got preferential treatment," and everybody was saying with Jalen Carter, I never saw that before, where he was suspended retroactively for a game. Well, if he got but if he got suspended, I just think that, and by the way, Bleacher Brothers had a spammer there. So, but I'm just, and the thing is, when they go to one, they go to the other. So, a lot of what you will see, I'm just wondering, do people think that he got preferential treatment or not? I think he did, but obviously it's not like spitting, because it is assault. But then again, if you want to argue assault, there were a couple plays where, well, there was one play that I wouldn't be able to find a video if I tried now. One of the offensive linemen gave one of the Eagles a left hook. Now, technically, that's assault too, But in the rules in the NFL, that's just a 15-yard unnecessary roughness penalty. But, but what you have with spitting is unsportsmanlike conduct. Now, with Dak Prescott, it's a smart move, but it's a dangerous move because if you get caught, whoever's your backup has to quarterback that game. It would have been interesting if the referees would have kicked him out or not, because he didn't get caught. Joe Milton III is the backup quarterback. I know what you're saying. Who the fuck is that guy? But all I know is you can't spit on people, whether it's first play of the game, whatever. And, none of this happens if Van Sumeren doesn't blow out his patella tendon. And I'm not blaming him for this, even though it's a case, because football injuries happen, whether it's a broken pinky or, a leg cramp or, God forbid, an Achilles or patella that tore. Injuries happen all the time in the NFL. It just sucked that Dak Prescott instigated, which we found out later in the game. I think they found out after. I think some people in the trailer were bored during the delay. So, but but it would have been interesting if it happened like mid-game, because guess what? He's not playing in the Kansas City game. He's suspended for a game and a half, basically. Because you're ejected from that game, you get another game for spitting. And next time, if there is a next time, he's not getting one game. He's getting a minimum of 3, because it's progressive discipline in union shops, even in union leagues that are unionized like this. So, but so one thing I do want to remind you here before we go on to the hockey story I have. Also eligible this Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern. I think I will have to be done by 11:30. I'm off. I'm on vacation, but I have something I got to do around 12 o'clock. So I'll have the phone nearby. But we're going to be looking at Woodbine. We're going to be looking at their 3 Breeders' Cup win-in-your-in races. And there is a little bit of a twist in those 3 races because they have 2 turf courses at Woodbine. They have the outer course, which is more of a European style, and they have the inner turf course, which is more cookie cutter, and that's what used to be their harness track. Well, the 3 races that would normally be on that outer turf course, the E.P. Taylor turf course, they're moved to the inner. And friend of Bleacher Brothers, Mark Cassie, had an interesting quote on the Daily Racing Forum saying that these races may actually help the change in the course may actually help the horses going forward, because they'll be going 2 turns instead of 1 turn. But that's what we'll talk about on Saturday. And we'll also look at the first 2 races on the road to the Kentucky Derby in Oaks. Kentucky Churchill Downs announced the races here, and they're going to have, I think it's 36 races for 33 races to the Kentucky Oaks road. And there's 36 for the road to the Kentucky Derby. Basically, they have a couple of additional races because of the fact that you have races run in the UK and in the Middle East and in Japan. So, but we'll even talk about the whole schedule here because they did update a little bit more after this news release was printed because Gulfstream announced their championship meet schedule. So that'll be everything on Saturday. We'll start at 10 a.m. sharp. Well, about 10:02 because I never start on time. But yeah, we'll get Toby Keith cranked, and we'll have everything ready to go for you. And hopefully we can continue this hot streak, which we have to start anew tomorrow with a race at Aqueduct, Belmont at the Big A, as they're calling that meet. The final year of Aqueduct. But we'll talk about Woodbine this weekend and Churchill as well. So I did see this today, and I saw the alert, but it was like, but it is interesting to note. It'll be interesting to see how the front offices react because, like, for example, we know Colin Kaepernick basically got blackballed for his social activism and all that stuff. I mean, I have my opinion about it, which I guarantee is totally different from everybody else's. We won't get into it. Trevor Bauer was accused of sexual assault, was suspended essentially a season and a half, has basically been blackballed by baseball because he's been playing the last 3-4 years in Japan and Mexico. But be interesting to see what happens with the NHL. Because if you remember, there were 5 former Hockey Canada players who were accused of sexual assault. This happened back in 2018 with their national under-20 junior team. Dylan Dubé, Cal Foote, Alex Formenton, Carter Hart, who was with the Flyers, and Michael McLeod were members of that team. They were charged, and in Canadian court, they were found not guilty of sexual assault charges in July, but they will still be suspended to start the NHL season, but eligible to return to play on December 1st, according to the league. So it will be interesting to see what happens with these 5 players. Do any of them get signed? Do all of them get signed? Do they end up going elsewhere? But in July, Ontario Superior Court Justice Maria Caroccia found the 5 players not guilty of sexual assault. McLeod was also acquitted of a separate charge of being a party to the offense of sexual assault. So the NHL said at that time that the players were ineligible to play until they were reinstated. Now, because this is a unionized league, well, why don't they appeal it? The NHL and the Players Association jointly negotiated the players' eligibility for this season. And basically what you do for one, you have to do for all 5. So at the time of these changes, and forgive me because I'm looking to my left, because I have the two screens set up here right now. All 5 are currently NHL free agents and can sign contracts beginning October 15th. Um, at the time of the charges, 4 of the players were active in the NHL and went on indefinite leave. Dubé was a forward with the Calgary Flames. Carter Hart was a goalie for the Flyers. McLeod and Foote were members of the New Jersey Devils organization. I think they were at their AHL team. Um, the NHL said in a statement today, taking into account that the players have been away from the game for 20 months, including since their acquittals in July, we have determined that the players will be eligible to sign an NHL contract no sooner than October 15th, 2025, and eligible to play in games no sooner than December 1st, bringing their total time out of the league to nearly 2 years. And the thing is, I seriously doubt that over the last year or two that they were doing much in the way of training because of the fact that you're talking to lawyers, you're going to court, you're doing this, you're doing that. The last thing that's on your mind is playing hockey. It's, am I going to be Bubba's bitch tonight because I got convicted? But also, the league and the Players Association is also recognizing in this that, hey, they probably haven't played in 2 years. Not only is this suspension a suspension, it's also a ramp up to get you ready to go when December 1st comes around. The same way, I'm sure this is the case with Jerks and Profar as well. And the same was the case with Jose Alvarado when he was suspended 80 games for PEDs. Towards the end of the suspension, you're allowed to ramp up by doing a rehab assignment, so to speak, in the minor leagues. So Alvarado pitched however many games at Lehigh Valley. So I think it's what's the term that I'm looking for here? It's good negotiating, good bargaining in good faith. That's what I'm looking for. I think it's bargaining in good faith that if any of these players do sign, and maybe Carter Hart would be I think Carter Hart may be the first one because some teams may desperately need a goalie. And the question is, do the Flyers bring him back? I don't know. But whatever they do, you know, be interesting to see if they get blackballed the same way that Trevor Bauer did for his accusal of sexual assault, which never went to trial. And I will even argue with these guys, did something happen? But it turned to he said, she said, and there may have been some intimidation involved. That may be the case. I'm not accusing. I'm speculating. But whatever happened, it ended up that it never made it to trial. But I believe something did happen. I just don't know everything because, you know, you get a he said, she said, and then you're getting into rough sex, and what you consider rough and what she considers rough may be two totally different things. And, you know, she's, you know, whatever. But we don't want to get into that. But the NHLPA said that the players will have the opportunity to resume their NHL careers The players cooperate in every investigation, which is what you want to do. Because if you do not assist in an investigation, that's a sign of guilt. And I know, at least in my job, that can get your ass fired. I'm sure get yourself all in trouble with the team and the law and God knows what else. So upon the full acquittal by Superior Court Justice Marie Caroccia, we initiate discussions with the NHL regarding the players' return to work, which is something a union should be doing. To avoid a protracted dispute that would cause further delay, we reached a resolution that the league announced today. We now consider the matter closed and look forward to the players' return. Now it's just a matter of, will they have trouble signing? And there's going to be some ignoramuses out there who are going to be like, oh, well, he was part of that rape case and blah, blah, blah. Kind of like what I heard about Michael Vick. The girl I was dating at the time, major animal advocate, did not like it one bit. My argument was, well, he did his time. If you don't like that he only did 2 years, go after the lawyers. Should he have got more time? Yeah. But that's all a moot point now because he's now coaching football at Norfolk State. But the NHL said in a statement, each of the players, based on in-person meetings with the league following the verdicts, expressed regret and remorse for his actions. Nevertheless, we believe their conduct requires formal league-imposed discipline. The league expects and requires that going forward, each of the players will uphold the standards required of NHL players both on and off the ice. And some businesses have a formal code of conduct. I know my job at Redacted, we have a code of conduct. The NHL has their code of conduct. The NFL does. NBA does. MLB does. And in some regards with sports, and I've mentioned this so many times over the years, if you're looking at, for example, well, let's take Trevor Bauer, for example. Let's say he was let's say forgive me. Let's say, for example, the whole Trevor Bauer thing exploded. Now, in Trevor Bauer's case, it's pretty safe to say with baseball, who Trevor Bauer is. Plain and simple. You know who he is. But like, for example, you have to go through some hoops with common folk like me or that guy at the Eagles Green Bay playoff game last year when he was telling a female Green Bay Packers fan the Packer fan that I will see you next Tuesday, if you know what that means. I think we all do. Well, the sleuths found out where he worked. They reported it. And ironically, it was the exact opposite of what their business was, their modus operandi is. And he got fired. So you're going to get caught. And like, for example, I had an incident many years ago where a SEPTA driver was threatening me in a parking lot down the street at Roosevelt Mall. Now, I wasn't here at the time. I was at my old house. But I didn't have any glasses, so I couldn't see far. So everything I saw was blurry. So I couldn't see his ID badge or his nameplate. If I saw his nameplate, I would have made a note of that when I went into the turf club. I was like, you got a pen I can use? Because I had an incident with a septic guy there. Just need to write his name down on my piece of paper here. Thank you. Just so that I'll say, hey, this guy, his name is so-and-so, you know, race, height, all this stuff, just so I can give an idea. And then you can peel everything out, and, you know, I'd probably get a lawyer with that because, you know, I'm making a major accusation here that somebody threatened me. So that's why you don't wear company garb if you leave work. You know, like some places you have to wear it because, you know, you have to wear a uniform and you have to wear certain things, and, you know, you have to wear an insignia of your redacted logo, whether your redacted company is not my redacted, but you get the idea. You have to represent the company, but you got to protect the shield too. And, you know, you put the league in a bad light and all that, and misbehaved. And even though I don't even think they were in the league at the time, but, you know, but the NHLPA wants it over with. The NHL wants it over with. Okay, it's all over now. The court made their case. You're going to have about 6 weeks, but technically it's your own personal training camp. And December 1st, you're welcome back on the ice. But yeah, we'll definitely see that coming this weekend. We'll see who gets signed first, whatever, because they'll be able to sign starting next month on October 15th. So we'll see who gets signed first. I think Carter Hart will be first because, you know, it's not often you get a half decent goalie as a free agent like that. And who knows? Maybe it goes back to the Flyers. But we're going to get to our last part here. And, forgot to do this tonight because I'm a dope. Let's put it over to the right here. There you go, the FanDuel promo there. Especially if you're watching on a PC, because it'll make it very easy to do. Scan that. And you will get a if you buy you bet $5, you get $300 in bonus wagers if your first bet wins. And also on top of that, if you're a person that likes to play the horses as well, you can take that same pot of money once you go through the promotional money. If you win that first wager or whatever, you can go from the sports book to the casino to the race book. So you can actually wager and hit like a 14 parlay for like 700. All right, well, Joe was talking about these races at Woodbine, you know, and then on top of that, they have a promotion where your first wager on FanDuel Racing is a up to $500 no sweat first bet. So if you wanted to bet that full 500 and your horse doesn't win, you get that $500 back. But if you hit that 8-1 shot that I gave out at Fort Erie Tuesday, it paid $18.50 to win. And if you bet the full 500, which would mean $250, because all payouts are in $2 wagers for win, place, and show, that $500 first bet wager would have given you $4,625. Now, granted, depending on how big the pool was, you would also have been influencing the pool a little bit. And we go into that on Saturday as well. But we'll be promoting that on Sunday. And Green Bay has just scored a touchdown. They're up 23-10 on the Washington Commies. So let's get to the sports aspect here. This is the Philly Phade segment. Last 2 weeks ago, not good. 0-4, and we weren't even close. A rare bad week. And the fact that I have two cameras here helps me out. Two screens helps me out a lot here. So I can take a peek at both things here. So I am going to disappear from here. There. Did not want to do that. I wanted to do this where I can hide the camera but still have that. So so here we go. So this is the Philly Phade, and this is something that I do every Thursday night. But last Wednesday night, everything got so screwed up that my internet had been acting up for a couple of days. I don't even know if you got my Super Bowl pick, which was the Eagles over the Bills. But even so, I just didn't, I wanted to give you Eagles Cowboys, but in a way I'm glad I didn't, because I would have told you to take the Eagles, and it was a 4-point game. So we are going to begin now. The one thing I would say here as we look at Dallas and New York here. Now, the way that this is, there is no way in hell I would take the Giants minus 120 at minus 4.5. Usually that's 110. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to balance things out here so that they can do whatever they can to get some money here, get some more money here on the Giants to make sure this stays at 4.5, because they're doing whatever they can to not make it 5. But alternate spread, now I do not recommend this. I do not recommend this move, because if you do it, you might be in deep doo-doo. But normally, if this was about 110, 111, 112, something in that range, I would take Dallas minus 4.5. But I'm going to go alternate spread here. The Giants are still god-awful. And I highly recommend do not put Jackson Dart in Brian Daboll. And by the way, Brian Daboll, did he not have his did he run out of his Mounjaro or Ozempic? Because he really started to look fat again on the sidelines. Maybe he tried to fatten up to try to change the luck of the team. But either way, the Giants are horrible. And we'll see if the Dallas Cowboys can get things on, keep things the way they were, because they were very competitive with the Eagles. But then again, that's familiarity and all that. And what I'm going to do is, I don't recommend this. What I would say if I were you guys, I wouldn't make this bet right now, because my pick is Dallas on this. And I would hope that this minus 20 changes, because there is no way in hell I'm putting a 20% vig on there, because the one thing is, you got to bet $120 to get that $100 back. No way I'm doing that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to alt wager. I'm going to alt line this. I'm going to go at minus 5.5, because I think Dallas wins by 2 touchdowns here. I think the Giants are so bad. And it's all because of the offensive line, and they do not believe in building from the inside out. And I don't blame Saquon Barkley for leaving them. But either way, no way in hell do I think the Giants have a shot here, which probably means they win by double digits. But I'm going Dallas. I'm alt spreading this to 5.5 just because of the fig there. Now, if this show was tomorrow night, maybe this gets less jacked up, but I'm jacking the line up to 5.5 here. So I'm going with the Giants here, alternate line. And also, just to let you guys know, I'm not a fan of Dallas Cowboys. I wish they would go 0-17, but hey, sometimes they win. So we got that. And these may not even be picks in my super book, my super contest that I'm in. I'm in one with Action Labs, where I went 3-1 last week, and I am tied for the lead right now. There's another one that I'm in that it was a contest I won in 2009. There's 60 people in this contest, and I went 4-1. I'm in a 13-14 way tie for first place, because 14 people went 4-1. So, and that's big money on that one. But and this is just for this show. I may not even pick any of these games. I may even go against them. But San Francisco is beat up right now. I don't know what this line opened up at, because I like to decompress from football for a day or two. But this is a 3-point spread right now. San Francisco is favored by 3, and they are beat up right now. George Kittle is out. Brock Purdy has turf toe. They have all kinds of injuries, even on the defensive side of the ball. I think New Orleans actually felt pretty good about their performance. And I'm going to take the Saints in an upset here. I'm going to go money line plus 136 on the New Orleans Saints. So that is my second pick here. This may be one that I go with here. Seattle's a 3-point favorite, 3-point dog at Pittsburgh. Seattle played San Francisco tough. I think their defense is pretty good, at least for this time of the year. Pittsburgh, they got lucky they won. And is it vintage Aaron Rodgers? I don't know. Did he meet up with his ayahuasca dealer in the Bronx on Saturday night? I don't know. But I think we're going to see good games and bad games from Aaron Rodgers this year. And I think Seattle will win this game here. I'm going Seattle money line plus 130. And I don't like any of these other games. You can see there, you can go I think you can go all the way down to the end of the season if they have a line. But the other game I'm going to look at here, and we pick every Eagles game, as long as I don't lose internet or get frustrated by my internet. But the Eagles take on the Kansas City Chiefs. It's a rematch of Super Bowl 59 and 57. We know what happened last year. Eagles went boot to ass to Kansas City. And just remember, it was 40-6 when the Eagles said, all right, you guys can score a couple of touchdowns because we're done here. As soon as they scored that first touchdown, I was like, okay. Because I think the Eagles really wanted that shutout. Be the first team to ever shut out team. Also shutting out the Kansas City Chiefs. Jesus Christ. But this is definitely something that I was mentioning to Mike the other day. Now, if you are betting Kansas City this weekend, mind you, the Kansas City Chiefs, they're playing at home, their home opener, rematches, Super Bowl, all that stuff. If you're betting the Chiefs, note that 1.5 point spread, the chances of Kansas City winning that game or winning that point spread and still losing the game by a point is very, very minute. Okay? So I will tell you guys, because of that probability of that happening is slim and none for the most part, if you're Kansas City, don't go here because your return on investment is not as good with minus 115, which means you have to bet 115 to get 100 back. And of course, it's prorated based upon what your wager is. So if you bet $11.50, you get $10 back. But if you're going to bet Kansas City in this spot, don't go with the minus 115 because the chances of Kansas City winning by exactly 1 point are very small. Why waste 15%? Why bet $115 where you can get $100 back by betting 102? It just makes logical sense. But in this case, the Eagles, if you think they're going to win the game, the same situation here. If the chances of the Eagles winning by 1 point, where you would lose this wager and lose $105 if you bet 100, and this would hit where you would only get like 80 some bucks. The chances of that happening are pretty slim. As I said here on the opposite side, why bet minus 116 straight up where winning by 1 point is pretty hard to do? So I'm going to take the Eagles minus 1.5. They're my fourth and final play here for the NFL. And those are my 4 bets here. Dallas, I'm alt spreading the 5.5. That's minus 111. I'm taking New Orleans on the money line, plus 136. I'm taking Seattle money line, plus 130. And I'm taking the Eagles -1.5 at -105. So those are your picks for the NFL for Sunday. We're going to go to college. And let me blow this back up a little bit. NCAA. Okay, so this is the game that may not necessarily be an upset, but if you think Temple can upset Oklahoma, go right ahead. Boom, plus 1160. You bet 100, get $1,160 back. Not happening. Just to let you know, there was a hot mic situation. And Oklahoma, somebody on the Oklahoma coaching staff or media or whatever, called Temple a high school team. Yeah, that's probably the case in terms of Group of Five versus the Power Four. But I think Temple will play this close because they have a new coach, Casey Keeler, who won a couple of national championships at the University of Delaware at the FCS level. They're now back up. They're up to FBS this year for the first time. They're taking on Oklahoma. Oklahoma's 2-0. But I think Temple is going to be motivated after that little hot mic incident. So I'm going to take Temple plus 21.5. I think Oklahoma pulls this out, but I think Temple will be a little motivated here. So keep that in mind when you look at that matchup here. Just looking to see if there's anything else I really like here. Okay, so let's move up here. Let's go back up here. South Florida takes on Miami. South Florida is 2-0, and they pulled off a major upset of Florida last week. Now they're going for the state championship and trying to beat Miami. I think South Florida really has an opportunity to make themselves known. I mean, they're ranked 18th in the country, and I guarantee you a lot of the players on that. And even fans are saying because one person just totally didn't vote for South Florida in the top 25. So I think they're motivated here. They're not going to be afraid of anything with Miami, Florida. I doubt many people show up at Hurricane games anymore. But I think South Florida will at least keep this close. So I'm going South Florida plus 17 and a half. And those are my two college football picks. So hopefully we can get out of this 0-4 that I started this year. And then we have one more play here. And this is a play that I alerted to Mike on Monday. And this is when it's good to know your teams. Let me zoom out a little bit. Home. Soccer. UEFA. All right, well, I got to do it this way. Hold on. This is what happens when you don't plan things out all the way. Soccer. There it is, MLS. Okay. The Vancouver Whitecaps are taking on my Philadelphia Union. Now, I'm going to let you in on something. Even though the Philadelphia Union are the best team in the MLS in terms of on the table, they're leading the Supporter Shield race, which is the team with the best record. Think of it as the President Trophy in hockey. I really feel like this game Saturday night, I think the Union are not going to put in their best effort. Now, mind you, they have like a 5 or 6 point lead in the Eastern Conference, which is almost 2 games, close 3 points for a win. Also, the Philadelphia Union are also in a tournament called the U.S. Open Cup. And they are in the semifinals. And I will let you know. Now, if this was in the early stages of that tournament, I would tell you to play the Union or play the tie. I think the Union, because they're 2 wins away from hoisting a trophy and a championship, that I think the Union may give this game away or not give maximum effort because they know they got another game on Tuesday night in Nashville for the U.S. Open Cup. So my MLS play is the Vancouver Whitecaps on the money line, plus 110. And also, just let you know that U.S. That soccer matches here, they're 90 minutes and 90 minutes in injury time. So actually, this is regular season, but you have a 3-way line here. You have the Whitecaps, you have the draw between the 2 teams, and you have Philadelphia on the money line. Now, there is one 3-way that I like, And there's nothing better than a three-way with.
Two chicks at the same time, man.
Had to work that in. But in the case of this Philly Phade, we're going with the Vancouver Whitecaps here at plus 110. So let me just do this. Okay, so that is everything with that. And since I've been promoting, since I have been promoting FanDuel, especially because of the horse racing aspect of it, my lines going forward will be FanDuel lines. I was using DraftKings. It's just because of everything that we're promoting, and also if you're looking to open up a sports book, use our promotional QR code there, and we will. I do get a finder's fee and stuff like that. So, take a picture of that QR code, and just follow all the instructions on there and feed the initial account, and we get a finder's fee on that. So check out that. And also, if you're watching on other platforms, come join me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Joe Quills. Not only am I going to be doing these shows, I'm probably going to be doing some gaming next week for Out of the Park Baseball on my own. So I'm not dancing on my own, but I will be gaming on my own probably. Maybe that's the series, gaming on my own. I like how these ideas come out of nowhere. So let me write that down so I don't. So that's an idea. So sometimes it's those moments where it's like you're just sitting there. It's like, what was I thinking? I apologize for the motorcycle. Thankfully, it's not that loud. But sometimes you spitball something and it's like, what did I say? And you never get it back. At least now, because I have pencils and pens and paper all over the place. Gaming on my own. That may be the gaming equivalent of Quills Picks Winners. But also, just a reminder on the Bleacher Brothers channels, also eligible Saturday, 10 a.m. We will be live, and we'll be looking at Woodbine, and we'll also be looking at Churchill Downs, the first races in the road to the Kentucky Oaks and Derby. So that is going to be it for this show, and I do appreciate each and every one of you for joining me, Chairman, Mickey, our spammers, all of them, even the spammers. Whoops, not like that. Go back over here. Unable to share screen, no shit. But that's it for now. Do appreciate each and every one of you. We'll be live Saturday, 10 a.m. on the Bleacher Brothers channels. And we'll also be live Monday night at 9 o'clock. Also, check out, if you follow me on Twitch, you'll also get those gaming streams as well. We can have some fun and just have some fun banter as I'm playing. So that's it for now. Do appreciate each and every one of you. And the football game's just about over. And hope everybody has a great night. Go Phils. Beat the hell out of the Mets 4 straight games. And let's do it live on Saturday. And if not on Saturday, we'll do it Monday night, 9 o'clock, right here on the Joe Quills Show, twitch.tv/Joe Quills. Have a great night, everybody. And I'll see you in the winner's circle.
I'm going back to see the Phillies back in my hometown. Back to Philadelphia before the sun goes down. Wanna get back there to the ballpark lights. I gotta see the Phillies, what a beautiful sight. Gotta go cheer 'em on, help 'em score some runs. We wanna make the Phillies #1. I want you to tell everybody that I'm leaving today. I'm going back to Philadelphia, PA. I'm going home to Philadelphia, back in old PA, to see the greatest team in the USA. Wanna laugh at the fanatic doing his thing. Wanna stand up for the anthem, hear the people sing. I love to shout, it's out of here, that's one they'll never catch. I even love to do the 7th inning stretch. I want to tell everybody that I'm on my way. I'm going back to see the Phillies today. I'm going back to Philadelphia, I'll be living my dream. Back to catch the Phillies, they're my favorite team. You know, I've been to the East, I've been to the West, but Philly has the team that I love the best. I can live without the Yankees and the Dodgers if true. You can keep old Chicago and the Red Sox too. I'm going back to the place where the Phillies play.